first step you want to do when receiving your prospector is put it in the on position. That's by depressing the rocker switch to the left. When you do that, you're going to see that the liquid crystal display will activate, and there's going to be 3 icons on the liquid crystal display. The first thing I notice is the big number in the center. That's controlled with your digital tuning right here. On the bottom right corner is the battery power, how much battery power you have with your 9-volt alkaline battery. And on the left hand side is an icon. This is your balance mechanism. When it's in proper balance, it's going to be a square. When it's not properly balanced, like I'm showing you right now, there's a line that juts down, or it will jut upward. You want to try to maintain that square. That really helps you keep balance, a nice smooth, steady scan, and gives you a really good detection. The next thing we want to focus on is the rocker switch. Today we're going to be in the gold mode, so I have it depressed down towards gold, as indicated. If I wanted to hunt in the silver mode, all I do is simply depress the rocker switch into the silver mode. There's no indication on the screen. It's just controlled by this rocker switch and the indication of silver and gold. The other thing we want to focus on is the digital tuner. The digital tuner rotates counterclockwise and clockwise, and as I turn it, the numbers adjust on the screen from 1 to 10. I know where my tuning is already. My tuning's at 4, so I look for this little mark, this little line that goes up, and that's my proper tuning. The last thing we want to focus on is the antenna. It is removable by just turning it, and you can take it out of the machine, and then you can just lock it in place like so. As you can see, the antenna, it extends and retracts. It's critical not only for range capability but also for tuning, as you'll see in my instruction. To establish a proper scan or sweep, this is very critical to recognizing detection off the antenna system. What you want to do is you want to turn on your prospector. Have it set in the mode that you're going to use for your practice. Today we have it set in the gold mode, so it's depressed down. Next, what you want to do is look for your tuning. Most treasure hunters, prospectors, and hobbyists are going to find that their tuning is between 3 and 6. Mine happens to be at 4, which I have it set at. So we want to bring it up to a balanced state. As you can see, the prospector is not flopping to the left, it's not flopping to the right. I have the capability to just hold it here balanced. Very important. You may find that it's easier to keep it balanced if you put a little dip into it, about 5 degrees. That's fine as well. But here's what we want to do. Keep our feet stationary. My elbow and my upper arm is forming almost a right angle, and I want to make a nice, smooth, steady scan past my practice target. I'm recognizing that I'm getting torque off the tip of the antenna. I bring it back right to left, concentrating on the tip of the antenna. I'm establishing a line of bearing from myself to the practice target in the distance. Let's talk about fine tuning. As you can see around the tuning knob, there are different lines or notches all around like a clock. What you want to do is fine tune your prospector at a specific line so that you can really become accurate in establishing your line of bearing and finding the targets of interest. A side view of balancing the prospector. As you can see, the user is perfectly balancing the equipment. If you're finding that you're having difficulty balancing the equipment, put a 5-degree dip of the antenna pointing towards the ground. You'll still receive an attraction just as you would if it was perfectly balanced, and you'll find that the machine may be easier to scan. When you practice with the unit, the first thing you need to recognize is the balancing of the equipment. As you can see that demonstrated on the DVD, a nice, smooth, steady scan is provided. When there is no gold or silver target in the distance, you'll see that there's no torque or detection off the antenna system. You will recognize an attraction, a pull in the direction of gold or silver. This, for example, we are using a gold practice target. You will see right to left there's an attraction, and back left to right there's an attraction. Your scanning preference can be just left to right, it can be right to left, or left to right and right to left, whatever you are comfortable with. But pay attention to the tip of the antenna system, recognize the attraction towards your practice target, and look for that line of bearing from yourself to the area of interest. You want to go by your practice target, come up to a balanced scan. Moving the torso, I do not move my feet. I start recognizing torque or resistance off the tip of the antenna. My focus is on the tip. I come back right to left. It wants to lock back in. I can look down my antenna using my peripheral vision, noticing that I am establishing a line of bearing from myself to the gold target in the distance. I'm controlled, smooth, and steady. I maintain balance as well during my scan, and I wait a couple seconds at the end to let my antenna settle in to get an exact line of bearing. What we do not want you to do is provide a scan like this to where you lose balance. You want to maintain balance. You do not want the machine to flop back and forth. Balanced, smooth, steady, accurate. If you're finding that you're having difficulty balancing equipment, even with the balance mechanism, what we tell you to do is put a little bit of dip in the antenna system. You'll notice that the balance mechanism on the screen will jet up towards the top. That's fine. Keeping your elbow in and continuing your scan smooth and steady. Recognizing torque, like so. Coming back left to right, even with the dip in, you will get torque and resistance off the antenna system, allowing yourself to establish a line of bearing from you to your practice target. Demonstrate another technique that you can use out in the field. This is a very good technique for prospectors, but it can be used for coin hunters as well. This is called the walk-by. What I do is I have my unit tuned up, I have it the balanced state, I have it under control, and I start walking in a straight line past the stream. What I'm looking for is a turn on the antenna system. I'm focusing on the antenna, I'm focusing on the antenna. I start to get a turn, there it is. I stop and I mark the ground with my foot, or I have a stake or a pole, and what I do is I'm going to go back the opposite direction and take another walk by. Here we go, coming back the opposite way. I'm balancing my prospector. I have it under control. I'm looking at the antenna. I'm looking for a turn. Maybe it's 45 degrees, maybe it's 90 degrees. I'm looking for the second line for myself to establish. There it goes, it's turning right there. What I want to do is turn, mark the ground with my foot, put a stake in, put a pole in. Now what I've done is I've established a boundary. One up there, one down here. I want to set about a 20-foot area right here so that I can go into the stream and I can take samples with my prospecting equipment. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go out in the field and show you how to establish your primary line. Your primary line is that initial point where you're standing to establish a line of bearing from yourself to the target in the distance. So what I do, use my proper scan technique, nice and balanced, scan, recognize detection off my antenna, let it settle in, look for a landmark in the distance, bring it back right to left, looking for torque, there it is, let it settle in, still line up that landmark. Okay, I have a tree lined up in the distance. So what I want to do is I'm going to run a rope from my initial place that I'm standing and establish that primary line to my target in the distance. Some rope Out in the distance, I'm going to establish my second line of bearing that should intersect in the distance, giving us an area of interest to pinpoint, make a recovery with our metal detector. I'm going to go over the scan again, have it up to a balanced state, right to left. There's my detection. I'm going to let the antenna settle in. Looking for a landmark in the distance. I see a tree that it looks like it's lining up with. I'm going to bring it back left to right again. There it is. Let's let it settle in. Excellent. There's a tree in the distance. I'm going to run rope from where I'm standing out in the distance. Two lines are going to intersect. Focus with your metal detector. My feet, I have my secondary line over here 30 foot away, running in. You can see they're forming, they're triangulating, they're intersecting right here. Right here's my area of interest. What I want to do now, put the scope down, I'm going to go grab my conventional metal detector, and I want to grid this area out. Maybe you want to take a 10 by 10 foot area, 12 by 12 foot area, maybe a 15 by 15 foot area. Whatever makes you feel comfortable. Go north to south, south to north, west to east, east to west. Take your time trying to find this spot initially. If you find you're putting too much time into it, maybe the target's too deep. Maybe when you're establishing your line of bearings, you might be off a little bit. If you find that it's taking way too much time, move on to the next area of interest. You can always document that you had a detection here and come back to it another time. If you do make a recovery, here's what I advise you to do. Go back to your initial point, scan this area again. If you do not receive a detection at that juncture, then you know you recovered the target you were looking for. Use an electroscope to detect the target in the water. The answer to that is yes, you can. It makes it a little bit difficult to line it up, say for example, if you're at the ocean, because you don't have anything to reference. You kind of have to establish two lines of bearing and approximate where they're intersecting in the distance. But let me give you an example of what we would recommend, say at a river or a stream. What you do is you would scan the area of interest, and then you would get a torque resistance like so. I don't have a gold target to demonstrate it on, but I'm going to show you this way. You'd let it settle in, kind of eye something up, walk over 30 feet to the right. What I've done is move 30 foot from my original starting point so I can establish a second line of bearing in the distance. This is called the triangulation method. I'm going to scan over the same area and it would attract. For demonstration purposes, I'm just showing you what it would look like. We get torque resistance. The two lines would intersect in the distance, and I have to eyeball an approximate area that I can go out there with a conventional metal detector or prospecting equipment, something to use to pinpoint and make a recovery. Electroscope, your prospector, you can scan an area of interest, establish a landmark in the distance, grab your conventional metal detector, and just walk in the line, scanning that line, looking for that landmark, seeing if you're getting a detection. If you think you've walked too far, turn around with your scope, scan the area of interest. If you get a detection, walk back in that direction and see if you can recover it with your detector. If not, keep going down this line. In closing, Thomas and I would like to thank you for purchasing the prospector. We hope that you learned from this instructional DVD how to use the prospector, and take the time to learn how to use it for your treasure hunting, prospecting, and hobby endeavors. It's a skilled instrument. It's going to take some time to learn how to use it, but if you put the practice in, you will benefit having this in your treasure hunting arsenal.